Welcome to the Path Monk Presents podcast. My name is Sean Donnelly Lewis, and in today's episode, we're speaking with Craig Kinnersley, and he is the founder and CEO at NicheMoves.com. Craig, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, doing really well. Excited to hear more about NicheMoves. Tell us all about it. In your own words.
Okay, so NicheMoves is an advisory business that works with CMOs and CEOs of companies that traditionally have a loyalty program attached to their marketing department or marketing vertical. And I come in and generally help them realign, reimagine, or reinvigorate a loyalty program that might have stalled or just needs to have a new focus and direction. I'm qualified to do that because for about 20 years preceding setting up this business, I worked for blue chip companies, helping brands establish themselves in the marketplace and then finding consumers that would attach themselves to those brands from a loyalty perspective. And I also then set up a business that ran for 10 years post my blue chip engagement, which created business intelligence and marketing triggers for blue chips and SMEs. Globally, and so the specialist knowledge that I accrued there in loyalty has put me in this position where I'm able to go and speak to businesses all around the world.
Amazing. So thinking about the company, how have you been able to grow? Has it just been a lot of those referrals, or have you used a lot of digital inbound, outbound, SEO, SEM?
Yeah, a lot of it has been on referral because at the level in which I've tended to operate, which is generally around about minimum turnover of $1 billion plus, and anywhere between 1 million and 17 million people in the loyalty program. A lot of that comes to me from internal. But what I've done, internal referrals. But what I've tended to do is talk a little bit on social media. Because if you can find the right social media channels and you can talk directly to the CMOs and the CEOs of those organizations, they are interested to hear little bits of case history that you can put forward to them. And on the opportunities where I don't get a referral, inbound inquiries do come from social media.
Okay. And I looked at your website. It looks great, by the way. Does the website also draw, how does that work in client acquisition?
The website at the moment is actually going through a redesign, but typically what it does is it just lists out very simply and very clearly the capability that I bring myself, and then the secondary capability with the partners that I work with bring. And what we try and do with that is keep it really simple and really to the point, because we know that the folks that are looking at that have typically got a challenge. What they don't need is an additional challenge by trying to decipher what the website's saying to them. So it's generally very specific and to the point. And what we're doing at the moment is we're just rejigging that slightly, because we've got some new tech and some new tech partners that are coming on that augment what we can do. And so we're just basically re-scripting that to tell their story in a much more digestible and easy to understand way.
Coming back to what your company does, what would you say helps you guys stand out in the market? What do you guys do just a little bit differently than other people that occupy the same space?
I think we're really agile, and I think the other thing is that I in particular understand that loyalty isn't about psychology. It's about making a digital connection and creating a currency between a brand and an individual. And there's a currency exchange, and there are certain triggers which put a high value on that exchange from time to time. And depending on where the consumer is in their life cycle and where the company that's talking to them is within their product cycle, that value can go up and go down. And I think I'm one of the few people that truly grabbed hold of that concept and understood it from an early stage. So I don't go to any business with my partners and talk to them about how we're going to do something behavioral and make a change on a psychological level. We're talking about how that person transacts and how they add value to the consumer and to the business that they're dealing with. And I think that's our USP. We just get it in a different way.
Very cool. You were talking about before the show how much all of your experience and the wisdom that you've learned along the way. At this point in the show, I just asked you, I pick your brain. all the stuff that you've seen. When it comes to marketing, what would you say is the biggest challenge? Just obviously from your opinion, when it comes to innovation, what would you say is the biggest challenge for companies when they want to innovate but also grow or in marketing?
The general difficulty is having everybody at the same level of understanding about what that innovation looks like. And companies will fixate on trying to get the consumer message right. And what I often do is I often encourage them to take a step back and get their teams and individuals and everybody to the same level of understanding and excitement about what it is that they want to achieve. But that internal comms piece, which is a marketing piece in its own right, is often the biggest challenge that these guys face, because they're all at different levels, they have different expectations, and it's about getting them all on a level playing field and just creating that really solid foundation to move forward. And 90% of the businesses I go to don't have that cohesion.
Okay. So how do you do it? I just now I'm curious about even some practical examples. Talk to me just for a second how you would tell people, yeah, to get how you get the same vision, everybody carrying the same vision for innovation.
One of the things that I do is get people talking. So you find that there are fragmented communication channels within organizations, which has been a very key issue through the COVID scenario. People have worked from home, they haven't been in businesses and haven't had, really coherent multiple conversations. So what I tend to do is get people, if possible, in a room or on a Zoom call. We have one single agenda. There are within that agenda, other topics may enter into the conversation, but we basically build a really strong foundation, and we communicate very directly and very concisely about what the opportunity is and how we foresee that, we being the management and myself, because generally there's been a conversation preceding that, about how we see the technology or the marketing campaign moving forward en masse from that point. So basically what you're doing is you're laying a very clear foundation, you're having a conversation around that to get everybody to the same level. So there isn't anybody who can say, I didn't get it, or I wasn't part of it. Everybody's part of the conversation. It's about encouraging that communication to happen. So if there's good, bad, reservations, endorsements amongst the group, listening to all of those, and in particular, taking on board those people who are really for it and those people who are really against it, because then there's an opportunity offline and out of that forum to manage expectations. And strangely enough, there's a fine line between super enthusiasm and super negativity. And if you can bring those people together offline, the next stage is, once you've got the campaign or the strategy underway, is to have more of those meetings where you've got that kind of open dialogue and that clear communication. So that's the essence of how I think I've overcome it in the past.
So returning back to marketing, when you hear something like ROI, what do you think is the biggest challenge in marketing for that?
I think, again, it's a kind of understanding, and I'll bring it back to a conversation that I had just this morning with a client. They are struggling to understand their ROI on their PPC campaigns. And the first thing I said to them is, how do you benchmark it? And there was 5 dissenting voices and one from the CEO, one very distinct voice about what he thought that they were looking for in ROI. So I've got a group of guys there that are saying something different, but they're in unison, and a CEO who's saying, this is what I want. So the scale back is getting everybody to a point where we can at least agree what they're looking for from their PPC activity. And that's a challenge, getting people to just understand what it is that the clarity of their task. And again, in a fragmented world in which we're in at the moment, people tend to go off and run in different directions, and it's kind of reining them back and saying, right, let's look at what ROI actually means, and look at it from a collective point of view rather than individual points of view. And I think that's been a really important, especially over the COVID period, where people have literally gone off and interpreted ROI in very much their own way.
And one more of these type questions: conversion optimization. Just to pick your brain for one more question. What would be the biggest challenge in marketing for that?
I think it's putting yourself in the mindset of the consumer and understanding what it is that is going to trigger them to come back into the marketing campaign. They see something, and it's understanding really what the zeitgeist is that's probably going to appeal to them. The utopia is to get to individual life stage marketing, as far as I see it, so that you can talk to a consumer about a moment in time that really works for them. But until that becomes a widespread and widely adopted capability, what you need to do is be very clear about what it is that you're doing that's going to attract the consumer back into your marketing funnel. And very few businesses do that. They get a little fixated on what they are trying to deliver and very rarely put themselves on the other side of the fence. And I think that's an important thing that will help that become more effective.
Yeah. Well, when you talk about it like that, Craig, you make everything sound so simple.
Well, the deal is, business is simple. There's just lots of functions within organizations which make it complicated. And as an owner operator, you've got a lot of plates that you're spinning. And if you can clearly see where all of those plates are, and you know what the tasks are with the people that are associated with those functions, you can make it simple to operate. And businesses that do well keep it simple. Businesses that grow massively and become very fragmented overcomplicate, and that's where they run into difficulties. So simplicity is a really key factor in success, I think.
I just want to switch gears here for a second and talk about you as a leader. What kind of content do you consume to help educate yourself and grow as a person and as a professional?
I don't tend to read books on how to be a better leader or a better business person. I do tend to read biographies of people who have been successful or who have an interesting life story, because I'm interested in the decision-making process that they've made. So that's where I specifically take on board an interest. But in its broader sense, I consume a lot of general information. So, if I have a few spare minutes, sat in traffic if somebody else is driving the car, or in bed, or at the dinner table if I'm eating alone, my wife is doing other things, I will read lots of content. So that could be Apple News, it could be all sorts of curated content. I might go in search of content as well. So if there's something on Apple News, for example, that piques my interest, but it doesn't go deep enough, then I'll spin off and I'll go and research that. So I'm naturally inquisitive, and I naturally tend to soak up a lot of information. And I'm a great person to have in a pub quiz, because I know a lot of top line info. I'm probably not so great in an operating theatre, because I wouldn't have the in-depth knowledge. But I'm pretty generally interested in everything.
Very cool. And so we're slowly coming to the end of the episode, but before we end, I just want to hit you with some rapid fire questions. Just short and sweet,
Yep.
but answer as honestly as possible. Okay. All right, Craig, you talked about books. What was the last book that you read?
The biography of Phil Knight. I think it's called Shoe Dog.
Okay. What's the one thing that your company is focused on at the moment the most?
Better connections in terms of loyalty for people and businesses coming out of COVID. Relativity. What's relative to those loyalty programs that will get people back to a product or a service?
What's the last thing that kept you awake at night about your company?
That's a really good question. That was the start of COVID, and what was going to happen to the travel partners and businesses that we work with.
If you were to let's just say start your professional career over again, what piece of advice would you give yourself?
Go faster. I had a pretty meteoric upbringing through the blue chip companies. I was really quick to take advantage of things, but even looking back on it, at the speed in which I worked, there were opportunities which I just didn't take. So if there's an opportunity to move and there's any doubt in your mind, but it will advance your career, take it. Even if it ends badly, you will have got it on your resume, and you can go into another business and start from that point. So just move as quick as you can.
All right, everyone, that was Craig Kinnersley. You can check out all the great work he's doing at NicheMoves.com. Not saying it the way that it's written. Yeah, Craig, thank you so much for being on the show today. The last piece of business is the last word. So if you want to sum up everything that we talked about today, or if you feel like there's something that we've forgotten, I just want to give you the last word today. The floor is yours.
Thank you. So I think it's really important to think about NicheMoves and Craig Kinnersley in terms of consumer loyalty and the fact that we keep the message simple and we deliver a really concise and understandable solution to businesses that are operating in that marketplace. And it's a pleasure to get involved with as many of those companies as we can. And we really enjoy meeting and talking to new folks who have a challenge and who want to do loyalty in a more effective and collaborative way. So that's where what I would say is keep it simple. If you're struggling, get in touch, and we'll see if we can find a solution that will make your loyalty program come to life.
Great. Thanks for your time today, Craig.
Brilliant. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.